Hello everyone, welcome to Shdows Secret. Tonight's story takes us deep into the forgotten corners of a decaying city, where there lies an ancient library whispered about in hushed tones, a place people call the Library of Shadows, a place so strange and so cursed that those who enter never come out, at least not in the same form, because this library is unlike any other. During the day it looks abandoned, filled with dusty shelves, cobwebs hanging from broken chandeliers, and rotting wood that creaks beneath your feet. But when the sun sets, the air changes, the walls seem to breathe, and the shelves awaken, for the books in this library are not written by human hands. They write themselves, and the stories they tell are not fables or fiction, but the very lives of those who step inside, each page capturing a person's memories, their secrets, their fears, and finally their death. Imagine walking into such a place unaware, thinking you've stumbled into nothing more than an old archive, only to discover that the moment you crossed the threshold, your destiny was no longer yours. That's what happened to Ollie, a curious student searching for research material late one evening, when he found himself in front of the towering doors of the library, carved with the faint inscription, "Enter with silence," thinking nothing of it. He pushed his way inside, the stench of dust and forgotten years filled his lungs. He laid his bag on a cracked table and began browsing through the shelves, until he noticed one particular book moving on its own. It slid forward, thumped onto the table, and opened itself. Ollie's hands trembled as black ink began bleeding onto the blank page, forming words before his eyes, words that described his shirt, his bag, his name, and his fear. Panic coursed through him as he read the line, "And now he will never leave this library again." Ollie dropped the book and ran for the door, but when he touched the handle, the door was no longer wood. It was solid stone, cold and unyielding like a wall. Behind him the sound of thousands of pages turning filled the air, the shelves bursting open, books spilling ink and whispers, a chorus of moans and scratching quills writing endless stories. His screams were swallowed by the silence, and in morning the library stood as usual, calm and empty, except for a new shelf that had not been there before. On it rested a single book, its cover stained dark, the title burned into the leather, Ollie's story. Those who dared to open it later claimed to hear his voice echoing between the lines, calling, pleading, warning them not to read further. But they all did, and they too vanished. Weeks later it happened again, this time to Miriam, a graduate student working on her thesis. She had heard rumors of an old collection of manuscripts that could help her. When she found the library's doors, she hesitated, but curiosity overpowered her fear. Inside the lamps flickered as if stirred by invisible breaths. Her footsteps echoed unnaturally, and though she knew she was alone, the sensation of being watched never left her. Then a heavy tome fell from a high shelf and landed at her feet. When she picked it up, the first words scrawled across the page were, "Miriam entered the library unaware that the shadows were waiting." Her blood froze. She snapped the book shut, but it reopened in her hands, the ink bleeding faster, drawing her life into its sentences. She dropped it and bolted to the exit, but just like Ollie before her, the door had hardened into a stone wall. Shelves groaned, hundreds of books flying open in unison, and in a voice like 1,000 whispers, the library spoke a single word. "Stay." Miriam collapsed, losing consciousness. When she awoke, she was seated at a desk with a new book in front of her, bound in rough leather, and across the cover, carved deep, were the words, "Miriam's Story." She screamed as the pages fluttered open, showing her past, her family, her darkest secrets, and finally a description of her death. And then she was gone. Her body dissolved into the ink that soaked the book, and the library had claimed another soul, another story, another shelf. And this cycle never ends. Every few weeks the library calls out to another victim, drawing them in with whispers they cannot resist. It does not matter if they are scholars, wanderers, or the homeless seeking shelter. Once inside, they belong to the library. Some say the books are alive, each one a vessel for a soul that was trapped within. Some stories are complete, neat, and final, but others Others are still being written, their endings missing, their ink never drying, because the person is still inside, trapped between the shelves, wandering endlessly, unable to escape. One professor tried to uncover the truth, convinced it was all myth. He brought his journal, determined to document every detail, but as soon as he entered, his journal turned against him. The pen in his pocket rose by itself, scratching words into the paper. The professor entered with arrogance and will leave with silence. He tried to rip the pages apart, but the journal multiplied, copies appearing on every table, every shelf, every corner, all repeating the same words. His scream echoed through the corridors, and the next morning his journal was found on a new shelf, soaked in blood, its title burned into the cover, his story written, his body never recovered. Locals say that time inside the library does not move the same as outside. Some who barely step through the door feel like only hours pass, but when the shelves take them years, even centuries slip away, and when dawn comes, the library erases all trace of them, leaving only their story behind. Some travelers claimed they heard voices calling their names as they passed near the building, whispering, luring, promising knowledge and secrets beyond human imagination. Those who resisted survived. Those who answered were never seen again, and the strangest thing is this: the library is not fixed in one city. It is said to vanish and reappear somewhere else, rebuilding itself in forgotten alleys, abandoned towns, or burn doubt districts. Wherever loneliness thrives, the library of shadows grows, feeding itself on the curious and the lost, always waiting, always hungry. The shelves are endless, deeper than any building should allow, some corridors twisting into labyrinths where bookshelves stretch higher than the eye can see. And if you dare to touch the spines, you feel them pulse like living skin. The titles writhe and change under your fingers. Sometimes you see your own name glowing faintly among them, and if you do, it's already too late. Your book has begun writing itself, and no power can stop it. Many stories inside the library speak of people still alive within its walls, wandering between shelves, searching for their own unfinished books, praying that if they tear out the final page, they will be free, but none ever succeed, because the library does not allow endings until it is ready, and when it is, it closes the final chapter with your last breath. Some nights, passers-by claim they see candlelight flickering in the library windows, or shadows moving against the glass when the building should be empty. Others say they hear the scratching of pens carried on the wind, a sound like thousands of quills writing at once, and the faint smell of ink drifting out into the streets, drawing the curious closer and closer, until they step through the doors, and become another chapter in the endless archive of shadows. So if you ever find yourself wandering in a forgotten part of your city, and you come across an ancient building with towering doors marked only by the words "Enter with silence," do not go inside, no matter how strong the pull, no matter how much the whispers beg you, because if you do, the library of shadows will open its arms, its shelves will stir, and the ink will begin to flow, and your life will be written into a book that no one will ever finish reading, a story that belongs to the darkness forever. Thank you for watching Shdows Secret. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying stories from the shadows.